Well, President Trump is giving Iran an ultimatum.
Make a nuclear deal with the U.S. quickly or bad things will happen. The U.S. has had a massive military buildup of naval ships in the Middle East, while diplomatic talks are still underway. The Trump administration believes Tehran still has hundreds of kilograms of enriched uranium and plans to build a nuclear weapon, even though President Trump claimed a previous U.S. attack destroyed its facilities.
We're either going to get a deal or it's going to be unfortunate for them. I would think that would be enough time, 10, 15 days.
Iranians still have a very substantial stock of short-range missiles. They can fight back at the kinds of targets where there are significant American assets.
Sources tell CBS News in the diplomatic talks, Iran is seeking sanctions relief and may be willing to buy American aircraft and offer access to its oil fields. Meanwhile, Tehran released video of the Iranian Navy holding joint exercises with Russia as a show of force.
Well, joining us this morning is UCLA political science professor Ben Radd. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning.
Ben, the U.S. is certainly building up military forces while offering talks. Is this effective pressure on Iran, or is it a recipe for escalation?
Well, it's a little bit of both. It doesn't look like the talks are going to be fruitful. And the reason for that is because the U.S. demands really exceed the maximalist position that the Iranians are willing to concede on. So at this point, the buildup is difficult to see it as anything other than an inevitable use of force by the U.S. military.
Okay, so if there is a meeting, though, Ben, what would the U.S. and Iran each need to walk away with so that they both can claim a win? Because you know they're both going to have to do that.
Yeah, there are three key areas, but the first one's going to be on the issue of nuclear enrichment. The United States is seeking zero domestic enrichment capability by Iran, meaning any nuclear energy they need, any enrichment they need would be done off-site and brought in on an as-needed basis, something to that effect. Secondly is the issue of ballistic missiles. Now, these are missiles that Iran uses both for defensive and offensive reasons. For the United States, it's about reducing Iran's ability to attack neighbors, to threaten neighbors and cause regional instability. Iran says that's a non-starter. And then on the third issue is the support of proxy groups, which we've seen Iran use to devastating effect in recent years to destabilize the region. So those are the three key areas that have to be reconciled. And right now there's daylight between both countries.
Ben, how far apart are Washington and Tehran on the core nuclear demands?
Well, again, on this, it's going to be a matter of whether or not zero enrichment is something that the Supreme Leader of Iran will concede to. They've maintained enrichment for peaceful purposes is a international right, is a right they have as a sovereign state and member of the UN, and is a signatory to the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, I should say. And so they maintain that they have that right. They might be willing to concede on that issue, but that leaves the other two issues outstanding. And President Trump has said he wants a comprehensive, all-encompassing deal.
Well, with regional countries pushing for diplomacy, how likely is that kind of deal versus a military strike?
It seems less and less likely with momentum building. I mean, this is the largest buildup we've seen since the Iraq War. It's hard to see all of these forces being mobilized and marshaled and sitting there only as a point of leverage in this sort of game of gumboat diplomacy. Difficult to see how that can be scaled back and the escalation really dialed down. So I think at this point we're on the edge of something happening.
And what is it? Can you tell people who are maybe sitting on the sidelines don't really understand what that means as we go into the weekend?
It's going to mean taking out Iran's remaining nuclear infrastructure. Not all of it was completely destroyed last summer, back in June, last summer. And so there's that element. And secondly, it's taking out Iran's missile capabilities. Some of those installations are still there. We've seen satellite footage showing Iran is trying to rebuild and reconstitute some of that capability. So it's taking out all of Iran's remaining air, surface-to-air defenses and its ability to shoot those missiles well beyond its borders.
Okay. Well, Ben, thank you so much for being with us. I'm sure we'll be discussing this much more even into next week. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.